Hey guys, coming at you with another video today. This time we're going to be talking about our automatic transmission fluid. Specifically throughout this video, I will show you firstly what parts you need to get. After that, we'll check whether or not our fluid is dirty. Then I'll show you the proper way to check your transmission fluid level. And after that, we'll change our exterior transmission filter. And lastly, we'll do a 3-quart drain and fill. Now the reason I'm making this video is because it's often forgotten that the transmission fluid needs to be maintained. It's just as important as maintaining any other fluid in your car, including your engine oil, your brake fluid, your coolant, your power steering fluid. It's all very important. And if it's neglected long enough, eventually you're going to start getting crappy shifting, parts are going to start wearing down faster, you're going to get check engine lights. And if it gets bad enough, your transmission could need to be rebuilt or replaced, and that could cost thousands. And we do not want that, so let's get started. Firstly, we need some transmission fluid, of course. So I'm on eBay right now, and what we're going to look for is DW1 transmission fluid. This is the updated, improved formula that replaces the old Z1. So we're going to look for that. And you can get a case of 12 for 89 bucks on eBay. This particular seller is Livermore Honda. It's a genuine Honda dealership in California. So we're going to need to get that. A case of 12 will last you a good 3 or 4 years probably. I personally would recommend doing a 3-quart drain and fill once every 15,000 miles. Here's an actual bottle. So that's the first thing we need. Next, we're going to go on my favorite Acura parts website, acurapartsforless.com. So here we go. We're going to type in our vehicle first. So I have a 2002 TL Type S. And to find the filter, first we're going to come to ATF warmer / speed sensor. And our transmission filter is right here. So that's reference number 9. And the part number is right here. And it's roughly $43.07. So double check that this specific part number will fit your vehicle. And here's the actual filter itself. It's a little smaller than the oil filter. Got a little gasket there. Now on the other side here will be another tube with an O-ring gasket that will go inside there, which you can see right here. You got this tube that leads transmission fluid into the filter, I believe. And here's this tiny little O-ring. So if you need that new O-ring for whatever reason, that's where you can find that. Here's all the components we'll be dealing with. As for how often to change the transmission filter, I would recommend doing it once every 30,000 miles, which would be once every other drain and fill. And for most people, that interval would be about once every 2 years, in which case I would recommend going ahead and buying the OEM $43 filter and not some cheap aftermarket AutoZone Duralast filter. You don't want to put that garbage in your vehicle, trust me. I also happen to own all of the records from the previous owner of this vehicle, and that guy took this car to the Acura dealership for every single possible scheduled maintenance service that you could imagine. And for the first 168,000 miles that he owned this vehicle, not a single time did the Acura dealership ever change out this filter, and that is not okay. In fact, that might be partially why there were so many problems with these transmissions, because this filter is completely clogged and worn out, and it's not able to filter the fluid. What the dealership did have him do, however, was a single 3-quart drain and fill every 30,000 miles. And with all the problems that these transmissions have been having, we can no longer really trust the recommended intervals listed in the manual. So that is why we do 15,000 mile drain and fills, and that is also why I recommend a 30,000 mile filter change as well. My transmission currently has 242,000 miles on it, original transmission, and it's still running strong. So that is my personal recommendation on that matter. Next, we're going to need a drain plug gasket for our transmission drain plug, our crush washer. Yeah. So let's come back to here again. So this time we're going to do transmission housing. Here we are. Here's the drain plug, and here's the washer we need, reference number 10. And here's our part number. And these are roughly $2 each. So if you were to get 3 or 4 of these, that would also again last you about 60,000 miles at 15,000 mile oil changes. So get a couple of those, and here they are. These 3 are for the transmission drain plug, and these are for regular engine oil drain plug. So I bought a bunch of these, and they're just really light aluminum crush washers is all. And the last thing we need is some clear plastic vinyl tubing. And the reason, firstly, this is 1/4 inch inner diameter, and the outer diameter is roughly 3/8 of an inch. And the reason we need this is because we are not going to be filling our transmission fluid in through the actual, I don't even know what you call it. There's like a bolt you remove on the top of the transmission, but to fill through. But that is where the recall for our transmission was done. They put a oil jet there, so I personally don't mess with that. And I fill in through the dipstick hole, the transmission dipstick tube. So that's why we need this. You can get this at Menards for a couple bucks. Maybe get 2 or 3 feet of it. And that's all we need for that. So to check the cleanliness of our fluid, we're simply going to take our transmission dipstick, and a couple times we're just gonna wipe it off on a paper towel here. And we'll just put this back in for now. So on the left we've got clean brand new fluid, and on the right we've got my dirty fluid. Like before I said, I do my transmission fluid changes every 15,000 miles. I'm just a little overdue. I'm about 1,000 to 1,500 miles overdue. I've been busy lately. See, on the left is clean and on the right is dirty, and it doesn't look terrible, but it is definitely starting to get a little brown, which you can expect from dirty fluid. It's not terrible, but if your fluid's starting to look very dark brown or even black, and to the point that it smells burnt, that is bad, and you need to change your fluid ASAP. If that's the case, I would even recommend doing 2 drain and fills, not right next to each other. I would recommend doing the first drain and fill, maybe driving about 1,000 miles or something like that, a couple hundred to 1,000 miles, and then doing the second one. You just don't want to like shock the system with all this brand new fluid. I've heard a lot of bad things about doing complete, what's it called? Just complete flush. That's the word I'm looking for, a flush. I've heard flushes are pretty bad, just shocking your system with all this brand new fluid. So if you're going to do multiple drain and fills, I wouldn't recommend doing them back to back. Not to mention driving for a little bit will mix the fluid and ensure that you're getting the most effective drain and fill possible. So next what we're going to do is we're going to take our car for a short little drive. Now why is that? Well, to check our transmission fluid level, we need to warm up the engine. Now, you might be also thinking, hey, I could probably just let my engine idle and warm it up that way. Well, you can't do that because when you just let your engine idle, your transmission isn't doing anything. The temperature gauge right there that you're looking at is for the engine specifically, and so to warm up the transmission, you need to drive your car around a little bit to warm that up. So we're just going to drive a couple miles And we're gonna bring our vehicle up to full operating temperature here. All right, our vehicle is up to full operating temperature. We're in the garage. We are parked on a level surface, not an incline. And lastly, our engine is off. When you do this, you want it to be one swift movement in and out. So here we go. So one swift movement in, all the way at the bottom, and out right away. So when checking this, you'll see two lines. Focus. And you want that transmission level line to be in between the two dots. You can kind of see it. It is definitely between the two dots though. And the dot to the left means it's towards the full end, and the dot to the right is near the low end. So if your fluid level is too high or too low, that can also cause a lot of problems in check engine lights. So maintaining the proper level is also important to do. So that's how you check that. Alright, for the next part, we're going to remove the battery housing, the battery plate, which is beneath the battery, and the air intake assembly. And what that's going to do is reveal our transmission filter. Now, I don't want to have to re-record, re-edit, and re-upload all that. So what you're going to do is you're going to come to my profile, videos, and you're going to look for my solenoid screen filters video. And you're going to watch it from 4 minutes and 20 seconds all the way to 7 minutes and 20 seconds. Alright, 420 to 720. And that's going to show you how to take apart your car. I'll also post a link in the description for quicker access to this video. So you're going to watch this, and I'm going to go get started. Alright, we got the air assembly and the battery stuff removed. You actually might not need to remove this plate if you don't want to, because here is our filter. Alright, and just to point reference, here's the solenoid that we removed in the other video, but we're not trying to get under here, we're just trying to get right there. So here's our filter, and our first step is to remove two screws. There's one located right here, and I've got my ratchet on the other one, which is located on the bottom, and they're both a 10mm, so we're just gonna remove those first. Next, we're gonna take some paper towels and put them down here just to try and protect our car from any oil spill. And we're gonna take a screwdriver and we're gonna essentially separate this tube from the bracket. So here we go. Here we go. Should be able to remove it, hopefully by hand by now. Let's try that again. Let's try it up here. There we go. Got it. There's a little, just a little leak. So now that that's out, we can just kind of move it off to the side. And then what we're going to do is we're going to remove this bracket next. And I'll remove this. And I can't really see, but there's a screw like right there. And one right there. And we need to remove those two screws to remove this bracket so we can remove the filter. And to remove two said bolts, you're going to need a 10mm wrench for this part. And it should be as simple as popping it loose and then removing it by hand. So we're going to have to remove those two bolts and remove the rest of that bracket. Alright, I've got the bracket out. And to remove it, you'll notice that it's a very tight squeeze. And the way to remove it is you have to completely loosen both of the bolts first, and then you have to remove the bracket with the bolts all at the same time and pull it out in one hole. And you'll notice that also that these two bolts are not the same. This one on top or further back is shorter than the one on bottom, so don't get those two mixed up. And now we have our filter ready to be removed. And to remove it, we're going to get some fresh paper towels and try and stuff them under there the best we can, because I'm sure there's probably going to be more fluid leakage. And you're going to get a nice big wrench. About a 15/16 inch should work. So here we go, and we're just going to loosen that. Okay, it's feeling pretty loose, and I'm going to do the rest by hand. Okay, I've got it removed, and I would recommend not tilting or tipping it because it has two ends. So I'm just going to try and remove this as level as possible, if I can. Okay, it's good. And like I said, there is going to be oil inside of this filter, so try your best to avoid tilting it at an angle because it will spill. I just wanted to see how much was in there, and yeah, there's a good amount in there. So just avoid spilling down your pavement sand off and the gravel off to the side. Before we put the filter on, we're going to take our paper towel and we're going to wipe down that surface. And lastly, we're going to just dip our finger in our clean transmission fluid and just get the surface of this rubber gasket on our new filter a little wet, and then we'll screw it on. We're also just going to quickly clean that little O-ring gasket off and put a dab of transmission oil on there as well before putting it in the new filter. So we've got our oil transmission filter in, we've got our bracket on, and that other little pipe inserted into the filter. So that's all looking good. So next we're going to move on to draining the transmission fluid. So before we do this, I'd like to point out, I would recommend keeping your dipstick in, and if you don't have the recall done, this is the oil jet recall. If you don't have that done and you normally fill through this plug, I would recommend keeping that in too, because the transmission fluid has a much greater tendency to shoot oil much further compared to a regular oil change. So that is the, oops, low battery, that is the oil plug right there. So we need to remove that, and you'll notice it's a square, so you really don't need an attachment for your ratchet. So we're going to get an oil pan and we're going to drain our fluid. So all we need is just a ratchet and about a 1-inch extension, without like any of these attachments, just the square part, and it's a size 3/8. Alright, we popped it loose, we've got our cardboard down, we got our catch pan, and now we're gonna hope it doesn't make too much of a mess. Here we go. Nice. Yeah, if you have either that that top fill plug or the dipstick removed, last time I noticed it just shot straight over the pan and it made a big mess, and I didn't like that. So I'd recommend starting off like this. I'm just going to center our pan directly under the plug. Before we put the plug back in though, first we're going to remove the old washer since we won't be using that. And then we're going to wipe off all this junk. You see how that's just solid black. That's not because of the oil. That's because this is a magnet. This catches a bunch of debris that flows through your transmission. And so we need to make sure we wipe that off really good before putting that back in the drain plug. And then after we clean it off, we can put our new crush washer on and finally insert it. After this is done dripping, which it looks like it is, so we're going to do that. Okay guys, the plug is in. We are almost done. We're almost there. Alright, so now to the filling part. So the reason we need this tube, I think I showed it earlier in this video, but right here is normally where you would fill your transmission fluid in. But this is the oil jet recall for our car's transmissions. And personally, I don't want to mess with this bolt. So that's why we need our tube. And again, this is a 1/4 inch inner diameter and 3/8 inch outer diameter. And we're able to just put it right into the dipstick hole, and it fits perfectly. Okay, and I'm sure you can understand where this is going. So there's a couple ways you can do this. So here's our transmission fluid, comes by the quart. You could either take one of these cap type of things, and this fits right onto there. You can see it's like a little funnel, and you can put it in the other end of the tube and tip it upside down. That way works pretty good. You just gotta squeeze it as much out as you can, and then you need to loosen it up to let air back in, and then you tighten it and you tip it back upside down and you try squeezing the rest out as much as you can. And that's one way to do it. Or if you've got something else, I happen to have this old syringe here that I use to suck out, you know, like the power steering fluid, or is that the brake fluid? One of the two. I use it to suck out old fluid, but this time we're doing it the opposite way. We're gonna put it into the tube, and because it has a large diameter, we're able to pour the transmission fluid right down into there, and that's going to be a lot quicker. And you can do whatever method works best for you. Maybe you have a special funnel that would fit this. You could make something, whatever works. And check that out. I am a genius. I got it tied to my hood, and it's connected to my syringe. We're connected down there, and we can begin pouring. Try and pour and film at the same time. Okay. Yeah. Look at that. Would you just look at it? And you can just fill it up like this, and all things considered, it really doesn't take that long. So we're just going to do that for 3 quarts. We're going to put 3 quarts back in, okay? If you're driving another vehicle and you're not sure how much fluid to put back in, or maybe you just want to be safe, you can always measure the amount of fluid you took out and put that same amount of fluid back in. This is just a regular catch pan here, and as you can see, there are a bunch of lines to indicate how much fluid has been taken out. So if it was at the 3 quart mark, you would simply put 3 quarts back in. But I've done this enough times to know that I can put the full 3 quarts in my car and be safe. So after you've added your 3 quarts and you've put your entire car back together, next what you'll want to do is go for a drive. Make sure to go through all of the gears, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, neutral and reverse. Go through all those gears a couple of times. You could do that either by just taking a short drive for a couple miles down the road, or you can do what I do. I just go for a drive to work, and then when I get back I'll check the fluid again. But either way, you want to make sure you go through all the gears and make sure that your vehicle is up to operating temperature. And then again, park your car on a level surface, and then we're going to check our fluid the way we did before. So just one quick overall movement. But I'm right below the full mark, so I don't need to add any more fluid. But in case you do, just go back a couple minutes in the video and add fluid as you need. I wouldn't recommend filling up too much at one time. I would recommend only maybe a small amount of 50 milliliters at a time. But do that, and every time you add fluid, go for a drive, get that fluid all mixed up. Go through all your gears again, and again park your car on a level surface, and just keep checking it again. And here's the difference between my fluid now that I've done a 3-quart change. It's definitely brighter than before. Here's brand new fluid, and here's my current fluid, and that's looking pretty good. And I do my fluid changes every 15,000 miles, and I would recommend doing the same. Alright guys, that's it. That's all I got for you. We are all done. Awesome job. I really hope this video helped you guys today. I certainly put a lot of work and effort into making and editing this video, and hopefully I didn't forget anything, but in case I did, you can always feel free to drop a comment and ask a question. I feel I'm pretty darn good at getting back to people in a timely manner with helpful and in-depth answers. Also, don't forget to check the description, as I will be posting a bunch of links to the various items that were used in this video. Alright, I hope you guys have an awesome day, and again, thanks for watching.